Silence is the one weapon no one can defend against, because it gives them nothing to fight. Somewhere right now, a person is rehearsing an explanation nobody asked for, justifying a decision that was never anyone else's to approve, defending a choice that needs no defense. And they don't realize it, but every word they add is a small surrender, a quiet handing over of power to someone who didn't even have to ask for it. This is the paradox few people ever see, and by the end of this video from Animus Romanus, you won't look at your own words the same way again. Think about the last time you over-explained yourself. Maybe it was a decision about your career, your relationship, your time. Someone raised an eyebrow or asked why, and something in you, some old buried alarm, went off. You started talking. Not because the truth required more words, but because their silence felt unbearable. Their doubt felt like danger. That reaction has a name, though most people never learn it. The anxiety of being misunderstood. It feels like a moral emergency. It isn't. It's a habit. One built in childhood, reinforced by every teacher, parent, and boss who demanded a reason before granting permission. So you learn to over-explain as the price of being left alone. But here is the hidden truth. The more you explain, the less you're believed. Explanation signals doubt. Your own doubt first, and people can smell it. The moment you offer a defense nobody demanded, you've told them your decision is negotiable. You've opened a door you didn't need to open. Now imagine the opposite. Someone states a decision, one stops. No follow-up, no trail of justifications laid out like breadcrumbs for others to pick apart. What happens? The room shifts. There's a strange, magnetic authority in a person who doesn't need to be believed to remain unshaken. That is not arrogance. That is sovereignty, the quiet internal governance the Stoics prized above nearly everything else. This brings us to a principle so old it predates the word psychology itself, yet so relevant it could have been written for the algorithms and arguments of today: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus divided all of existence into two piles: the things that are ours to command, and the things that are our choices, our will, ours. Other people's opinions, their interpretations, their approval, never ours, not for 1 second, no matter how badly we perform for them. Once you actually absorb this, not as a quote to admire, but as a working principle, something changes. You stop treating other people's confusion as your emergency. Their misunderstanding is their process, happening in their mind, governed by their history, not yours to fix. You can be misread completely and still lose nothing, because what was never yours to control cannot be taken from you. This is why silence feels so dangerous to the untrained mind and so natural to the disciplined one. Silence isn't the absence of an answer, it's the presence of a boundary. And once you stop feeding every doubt a fresh explanation, you'll notice something almost eerie. People start acting differently around you. Not because you changed what you said, but because you stopped needing them to understand you at all. But knowing this is one thing. Living it, under real pressure, betrayal, ridicule, the people closest to you pushing back hardest, is another matter entirely. And for that, we turn to a man who held an empire together while everyone around him tried to pull him apart. In the year 175, word reached Marcus Aurelius that a man he trusted, Avidius Cassius, one of his most capable generals, had declared himself emperor. Rome was told the emperor was dead. It was a lie. Cassius seized the moment, gathered support across the eastern provinces, and prepared to rule an empire that was not his. Marcus was very much alive, and he was by every human measure entitled to fury, entitled to a swift, brutal response, entitled to explain himself to the Senate, to the legions, to history, to prove his loyalty had been betrayed, his generosity repaid with treason. He did almost none of that. What Marcus did instead is one of the most understated moments in Roman history and one of the most instructive. He did not flood the empire with justifications. He did not perform his innocence. He gathered his forces calmly, prepared to meet the threat, and, according to the historical record, expressed something closer to sorrow than rage, reportedly saying he wished only that Cassius could be spared, so the matter might be settled without more killing. Before the confrontation could unfold into full civil war, Cassius was killed by his own officers, and the crisis dissolved almost as quickly as it had risen. There was no grand address rebuilding his image, no campaign to control the narrative. Marcus simply continued to rule as he always had, because his authority had never depended on other men's belief in his loyalty. It depended on something inside him that betrayal couldn't touch. This is the heart of what the Stoics called the inner citadel, a phrase later popularized to describe the fortress Marcus built not from stone but from judgment, a place inside the mind that no legion, no rumor, no rival could breach, because it didn't rely on the outside world's cooperation to remain standing. While an empire whispered and speculated, the emperor's inner life stayed governed by his own reason alone. Picture that citadel now, not as metaphor, but as method. Every day, insults arrive, rumors circulate, someone somewhere is narrating a version of you that isn't true. The untrained mind treats each of these as an invasion requiring a response. The trained mind, the one with a citadel, simply closes the gate, not out of denial but out of understanding. An accusation only becomes damage once you let it inside and start arguing with it in your own head. Marcus wrote, in the private notebook history now calls Meditations, that a person can withdraw into this fortress at any moment and find it undisturbed, no matter what chaos surrounds them outside. He wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing to remind himself, in the middle of plague, war and betrayal, of the one place that always remained under his own command. This is what separates performance from peace. A man who explains himself to every accuser is a man still building his walls in public, brick by brick, for anyone to see and knock down. A man with an inner citadel already built needs no audience to confirm its standing. And here is the quiet, almost unsettling truth buried in this history. The less Marcus said, the more his authority grew. His silence after betrayal did not read as weakness. It read as a man who had already settled the matter within himself, long before anyone outside asked him to. But there is a darker mechanism behind why people demand your explanations in the first place. One that has less to do with truth and more to do with what they do with the words you hand them. Here is something almost no one tells you. When people push you to explain yourself, they are rarely looking for information. They are looking for material. This is the uncomfortable mechanism behind so much of human conflict, and modern psychology has a name for a piece of it: projection. It's the process by which people unconsciously attribute their own fears, insecurities, and unresolved conflicts onto someone else, then react to that person as though the projection were fact. Someone insecure about their own discipline will accuse the disciplined person of being cold. Someone anxious about being left behind will accuse the ambitious person of arrogance. It was never really about you. It was a mirror, and you simply happened to be standing in front of it. The danger is this: the moment you explain yourself to a person operating from projection, you hand them raw material to confirm the very story they've already built in their head. You didn't clarify anything. You fed the narrative. Every additional sentence becomes another thread they can pull, another line they can quote back to you later, reshaped just enough to serve their version of events. This is how explanations get weaponized. Not through malice alone, but through a simple, repeatable pattern. You offer context meant to create understanding, and the other person extracts from it only what confirms what they already believed. Say you explain why you turned down an invitation. Too tired, needed rest, wanted quiet. To a calm listener, that's simply information. To someone primed to feel excluded, that same sentence becomes evidence. You didn't want to be there. You're pulling away. You think you're better than them. You gave them nothing but the truth, and they built a courtroom out of it anyway. The tragic part is that most people respond to this by explaining more. They think if the first explanation was misused, a better, more detailed one will finally land correctly. It rarely does, because the issue was never a lack of clarity. It was a listener already committed to a conclusion, hunting only for lines to support it. Feeding that hunger doesn't satisfy it. It sharpens it. This is where a different approach emerges, one the Stoics practiced instinctively long before it had a modern name: strategic scarcity. Not withholding out of coldness, but rationing your words the way a disciplined person rations anything valuable. You do not owe every curious mind a full account of your reasoning. You do not owe every skeptical glance a paragraph of justification. The less you explain, the less material exists to distort. An empty hand cannot be turned into a weapon. Strategic scarcity also does something subtler. It changes how you're perceived, almost without your effort. People assign depth to what they cannot fully see. A person who offers everything instantly in full detail feels knowable, predictable, manageable. A person who offers only what's necessary, calm, brief, unhurried, feels like someone operating from a center others can't quite locate. That unlocatable center is not manipulation. It is simply undisturbed judgment, kept where it belongs, inside. None of this means secrecy for its own sake, or coldness toward people who deserve warmth. It means recognizing a simple, almost inconvenient truth. Your reasons are not currency you're required to spend just because someone extended their hand. And this becomes hardest to practice not with strangers, not with critics online, but with the people who sit across from you at dinner, the ones who've known you the longest, and who often resist your growth the loudest. The hardest silence to keep is not the one you hold in front of strangers. It's the one you hold at your own dinner table. There's an old image, unflattering but accurate, that people use to describe what happens when someone in a family or friend group tries to rise. Crabs in a bucket. Put one crab in a bucket and it climbs out easily. Put several crabs in together, and the moment one starts to climb, the others reach up and pull it back down, not out of strategy but instinct. No single crab benefits from another's escape, so no crab allows it. Families and friend circles do this too, though rarely with any awareness of the pattern. You start eating differently, and someone jokes that you've changed. You start working harder, and someone mentions, almost affectionately, that you're too serious now. You stop drinking, stop gossiping, stop staying out late, and the group doesn't celebrate your discipline. It quietly resents it because your change is a mirror held up to choices they haven't made yet. The instinct when this happens is to explain, to justify the new schedule, the new habits, the new boundaries, to make everyone comfortable again with who you're becoming. But this is precisely where strategic scarcity matters most, because these are the people whose reactions cut deepest, and therefore the people most likely to talk you out of your own growth if you hand them the chance. Epictetus, born a slave, and later one of Rome's most influential teachers, spoke directly to this problem when he addressed public ridicule. His counsel was almost shockingly simple. If someone speaks badly of you, do not fend the report. Examine whether it's true. If it's false, it says nothing about you and requires no defense. If it's true, then it's not an insult, it's information, and the wise response is correction, not indignation. Either way, arguing with the accusation wastes energy that belongs to your own progress. This applies with startling precision to family pushback. When someone close to you mocks your new discipline, there are only two honest possibilities. Either they're right, and something in your approach needs adjusting, which no argument will reveal, only honest reflection will, or they're simply uncomfortable with a version of you that no longer matches their expectations, in which case their discomfort is theirs to sit with, not yours to soothe. Radical domestic self-discipline means applying the same boundary at home that you'd apply anywhere else. Your habits do not require a family vote. You do not need consensus to wake up early, to train your body, to guard your time, to say no to gatherings that drain you. The people who love you will adjust in their own time to who you're becoming. And the ones who can't are revealing something about their own resistance to change, not about the legitimacy of yours. This is often the loneliest stretch of the path, because the silence you practice here isn't aimed at an audience or a rival. It's aimed at the very people whose approval once felt like oxygen. Holding that boundary without bitterness, without lecturing them into agreement, without needing them to say, "We're proud of you," before you allow yourself to continue, that is where the discipline becomes real. And once that boundary holds at home, something even more demanding awaits. Keeping your ambitions contained everywhere else too, especially in the places where visibility feels like proof that your effort is real. There is a particular kind of pressure that builds when you tell no one what you're building. It doesn't feel comfortable. In fact, it often feels like the opposite of relief. A tightening, a quiet ache to share the plan, the goal, the late nights nobody's watching. This is the pressure cooker effect, and it is one of the most misunderstood forces in personal ambition. Most people assume that talking about a goal releases pressure, makes it feel more real, more supported. What actually happens more often than not is the reverse. The moment you announce an ambition, some part of the mind quietly registers the social credit as already earned. The applause satisfies the very craving that was supposed to fuel the work. Keeping ambition contained does the opposite. It seals the pressure inside, with nowhere to go but into the work itself. There is no premature applause to dull the hunger, no external validation to mistake for progress. Everything you would have spent explaining your plans gets redirected into executing them. The goal stops being a story you tell people and becomes a private engine, running quietly, answerable to no one but you. This containment also builds something few people ever develop: immunity. In workplaces, in social circles, ambition that's spoken aloud too early becomes a target. Colleagues who sense your rising sometimes shift, almost imperceptibly, from allies to obstacles, not always out of malice, but out of the same instinct that pulls the climbing crab back into the bucket. Undisclosed progress cannot be sabotaged, because sabotage requires a visible target. A person quietly outperforming, without announcement, without competition for credit, is remarkably difficult to undermine. There is nothing to attack but results, and results, delivered without fanfare, are the hardest thing in the world to argue with. This is the final shape of everything we've walked through. The person who stopped over-explaining discovered sovereignty. The emperor who refused to defend himself against betrayal revealed a citadel no rumor could breach. The one who understood projection learned to withhold the raw material others needed to weaponize his words. The one who held boundaries at his own table learned that love does not require constant justification. And the one who kept his ambition sealed inside himself discovered a satisfaction that no applause could have matched. The satisfaction of quiet execution, of a plan completed before anyone even knew it existed. Silence, in the end, was never about having nothing to say. It was about understanding that not everything true needs to be spoken, not everything private needs to be shared, and not everyone who asks for a reason has earned one. The power was never in the explanation. It was always in the restraint. If this changed the way you see your own silence, there's another video waiting for you on this channel that goes even further into these ideas. Until we meet again in another video.